You've landed on The Substance. I'm your host, Philip Marinello, and I'm glad you decided to hang out with us here. Whether it's your first time or your 186th time, we're very glad that you decided to spend a little bit of time with us. Here at The Substance, we're looking to have conversations that help us all better appreciate goodness, truth, and beauty. Previous guests include folks like Film Spotting's Josh Larson, New York Times film critic Alyssa Wilkinson, Marta Georgievich from McFly's Movie House, actor-director John Carroll Lynch, and our pals over at Letterboxd, Slim and Mitchell. This week, very happy to have on film enthusiast, historian. You may have seen or heard him on commentaries and supplemental features on some great Blu-rays. I've got Jim Hemphill with me to talk about Martin Scorsese's very underseen and underdiscussed New York, New York. As he, spoiler alert for the very end, his pitch was basically, this is the movie that Marty and Robert De Niro made in between Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. So if you're at all a film fan, this is important. And it was great. This was actually a blind spot for me. So very grateful for the folks over at Imprint and Viavision out in Australia for sending us these gorgeous new Blu-rays, along with the Raging Bull one that was gorgeous as well. This is a movie that I'm very excited to have out in the world again. I mean, obviously, there were some old DVDs that you could maybe pay a lot for on eBay, but the new Blu-ray set, it looks incredible. It's got a lot of great special features. It's got a great book. It's got a gorgeous hard case on it. This is definitely one I highly recommend if you are a film fan and a Marty fan and a completist or a collector in any way. Go check this one out. This one is well worth getting. And I'm excited to be covering it here today. If you have been enjoying what we do here at The Substance, or you just have a good feeling about us if you're new, and you would, hit that 5-star button on your podcast app of choice. Or if you've been listening for a little while and are able to write a review on Apple, that's very helpful in helping more folks find the show. Okay, without further ado, here's my conversation with Jim Hemphill on Martin Scorsese's New York, New York. Jim, welcome to The Substance, man. It's good to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
So this is, I don't think we've ever had an episode come together quite like this. Not that I've always had long-standing personal or parasocial relationships with folks, but with this episode, I've been prepping to cover New York, New York when we got the Imprint Blu-ray. And then it just happened to be, I saw your article in IndieWire pop up and I was like, oh, I should reach out to this guy. This is a great piece. And I read your piece before I saw the movie. There's only a couple of Scorsese films. He's one of my guys. He's one of my favorites. There's only a couple of his I haven't seen. In New York, New York one was just, I never heard anybody really champion it before. So when they put out the great release, I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then I saw your piece. I was like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the reasons I wanted to write the piece is I feel like it's a movie. A lot of movies, they get reappraised. I mean, for example, the same week that New York, New York came out, William Friedkin's Sorcerer came out, and it was a movie that at the time was not appreciated or loved by barely anyone, but it kind of did get reappraised and found its cult years later, and Criterion recently put it out and everything. But New York, New York is a movie that weirdly, it has a few enthusiasts, but it's never really been embraced. And I think part of that is maybe because Scorsese himself has always had kind of mixed feelings about it. And I always think that when directors talk disparagingly about their own movies, it kind of sets this tone. And I think, you really shouldn't listen to directors about their own movies. I think in some ways they're the least reliable sources often because it's like they're tying in so many, it's like a lot of it's tied up in whatever they were going through personally at the time or whatever. They're not necessarily objective judges of their own work. But anyway, yeah, I mean, as you read in my article, I consider New York, New York to be right up there with the other, I feel like Scorsese in the 70s had one of the great unbroken strings of masterpieces, essentially from Mean Streets, through, I guess, if Raging Bull is 1980, but if you kind of think of that as like the end of the 70s or whatever, it's a really remarkable run that he had.
No, and truly, and I was looking at it in particular. I don't know if I want to get to this quite yet, but just the De Niro that four picture run of where De Niro is, I don't know if antisocial is quite the right, like misanthrope Robert De Niro. That four
Yeah,
picture run is just
social
crazy,
misfit.
and you mainly hear people talk about Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. Like King of Comedy has been reclaimed,
Yeah.
but I mean, a lot of people who are like cinephiles like King of Comedy. I think if you say to somebody who knows about Goodfellas but isn't a movie person, "Hey, King of Comedy," like they may or may not know that that's Scorsese.
Mhm.
But yeah, New York is not one. Like I said, I I was raised by a cinephile and been around movies long before the internet, like reading journals, and back when IMDb had message boards was on there day one, and I never really heard people talk about it before.
Mhm.
So shout out to the folks at Imprint for putting together such a package. And you said that Blu-ray is kind of what prompted you?
Yeah, well, also the fact that the imprint package, something that's unique about it is that it has the European cut of the movie, which is something that, as far as I know, has never been released on physical media. Certainly not where, in the US, it's never been available. And that European cut is closer to what people saw when the movie was initially theatrically released. But there was a point in the 80s when Scorsese kind of put together this quote unquote director's cut, and that became the kind of uh, standard version of the movie that people saw. But imprint, I feel like it's a really interesting comparison to watch the two versions on the imprint. And that was what spurred me to write about it. I mean, I wanted to write, we did this thing at IndieWire called 70s Week. And for 70s Week, I wanted to write something about Scorsese because I feel like, that was obviously, he's my favorite director. That was the era when he came up. And so I wanted to do something on him, but I kind of felt like, well, Taxi Driver's well covered ground. Mean Streets is well covered ground. Even I'd already written something on The Last Waltz before because when Robbie Robertson died, I interviewed Scorsese about that. So I felt like New York was the one that sort of just had never really gotten the proper love. And then the fact that the imprint had just put it out, it was very fresh in my mind.
And you have a relationship with them. You've done commentaries and special features and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I actually did a commentary for another Marty movie, Last Temptation of Christ, in their films of faith collection, and then I've done. Probably, I can't remember what other ones. I did Little Buddha, Bertolucci, and I've got a couple new ones coming out that I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about yet because they haven't been
Sure.
announced. But
Maybe off the air. I'd love to. No,
yeah, I'll let you
that
know.
Scorsese film, Faith, what's it? Films
Is it called
of
Films of
Faith
Faith? I think.
set,
Yeah. Hmm.
Films of Faith, an incredible set. I mean, the imprint is very kind, and we try to cover them and give them shout out a lot. They send us some stuff, but I actually bought that one because I was like, if they don't send that to me, I need that one. And that was
Yeah,
not
no, that's an incredible buy.
inexpensive, and I
Hmm.
already own those movies, but it's just such an incredible package. But also, I love that they have new, fresh commentaries. I don't know
Yeah. Well, and
why.
two of the
Not
and
everybody does that.
yeah, and Kundun and Silence are in a way. I mean, they're not necessarily as critically reviled as New York was, but they are kind of underappreciated movies in his canon. I think
Absolutely.
they're not ones that people are as familiar with, especially Kundun.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I love the Kino set, but this one even expanded on that. It's
Yeah,
yeah, Marty is also one of my main guys. Oh, I'm glad I remembered this and didn't come to this later. The other thing that really clenched it, like I knew I was probably going to reach out to you, but towards the end of your IndieWire piece, you also mentioned Sam Fuller, and I was like, he's one of my other number
yeah,
one guys, and almost nobody talks about him. So I was like, I think, I mean, if Jim's down, he's going to be the guy for this one.
yeah. I was just thinking about Sam Fuller the other day because, I was thinking recently. I don't know what spawned this. I guess just the fact that, right now in LA, I feel like is the greatest time ever, certainly in my lifetime, to be a cinephile in terms of like the repertory cinemas we have here. We've got so many great. There's like the New Beverly, the American Cinematheque, UCLA. There's something like a dozen theaters right now that show great repertory programming here, and that show stuff on celluloid and everything else. But it got me thinking about when I first moved out here, which was in the summer of '93. And I kind of took it for granted how lucky I was because I came out at a time where I kind of caught the tail end of something that no longer exists anymore. And it is this kind of like the guys who were the last men standing of the old Hollywood were still around. Like met Sam Fuller. I mean, I went to
Oh my
the
gosh.
American Cinematheque and saw White Dog and 40 Guns in those movies, and Fuller was there doing Q&As, and I mean, it was like a time where you could go to a screening and Billy Wilder would be there, and or Blake Edwards or something, and it's just
I've
sort of
heard
insane.
about Billy Wilder just being a very cool guy to people at
Yeah.
those events.
He was always around. When I first moved out here, he was always around. I feel like I was always seeing him at screenings and things, and it's I really I mean, now I just think that's insane. It's just insane that I was ever in the same room with
What an
Billy Wilder and
amazing
Sam
time.
Fuller. Yeah, yeah, it
My
really
god.
was.
Well, I would love to maybe talk to you about that off air, especially I've been very slowly because of the state of the world and family and work and all that, but I'm very slowly working together a side project on Fuller. I would maybe
Mm,
love to talk to you for that. I actually just
cool.
rewatched White Dog. My wife was out of town and I did a White Dog Messiah of Evil double feature and it
Oh,
was
there's a double
fantastic.
feature. Yeah.
Okay, so New York, New York. We've been talking for a little bit. When did you first see it?
I saw it for the first time in college in around probably would have been 91 or so. I saw it because they put out a laser disc of it. And this was when I was at the absolute height of my Marty obsession. I mean, Goodfellas came out. I mean, I was always a fan of his. Like, I remember the first movie of his I saw in the theater was After Hours, and I think I was, let's
Oh,
see, that,
what an experience that would be.
yeah,
We
and
have
I
a
think I
good
was
rep
13.
scene here, but I haven't gotten to see After Hours yet in a
Yeah,
theater.
I saw After Hours in the theater on its initial release when I was 13, and it just blew me away and kind of made me an instant lifelong fan of his. And certainly at around that time, I was discovering Taxi Driver and Mean Streets on VHS and stuff like that. But the point where the obsession really blew up was when Goodfellas came out in September of 1990. I guess I was a sophomore in film school in Chicago, and that thing just it was just cataclysmic. I mean, I saw it 10 times in the theater, and a record that was then broken when only that was broken the following year when Cape Fear came out, and I saw that 11 times in the theater.
Wow,
But I
Cape
was
Fear dethroned Goodfellas.
but well, I that's a whole other that's a subject for a whole other podcast, which is that Cape Fear is you could catch me on a day where I would say I think that's his best movie, but and I
Well,
sort of touch as
okay.
but then again, saying my favorite Scorsese movie is kind of like asking a parent to choose their favorite child in a
It's
way. It's kind of
impossible.
it's generally whatever one I watched last, and but anyway, Goodfellas. So when Goodfellas came out, like it was such an exciting time to be a film student when he was making, basically while I was a film student between being an undergrad and then going to grad school at USC. During the time I was in film school, he put out Goodfellas, Cape Fear, Age of Innocence. And I mean, to have those movies coming out while you're a film student and falling in love with filmmaking and really looking at movies in a serious way, I mean, it was very exciting. And at the same time, all of his earlier movies were starting to come out in these special edition laser discs. Like the
Oh
Criterion
yeah.
put out these incredible editions of Taxi Driver and Raging Bull, and then uh, long way of answering your question, which was MGM put out this box set of New York, New York that had a commentary by him and Carrie Rickey, which is now carried over on the imprint Blu-ray. And so I bought that laser disc, and I mean this is a time these laser discs were going for like $90. I mean, it was like if
Ooh.
you ever if you ever complain about the price of the special edition DVDs and Blu-rays and things now, I mean, Criterion laser
And it was
discs were
$90 in the 90s.
yeah. Yeah, I mean the Raging Bull one retailed for $125, the Criterion Raging Bull, and the
Ooh.
New York one. New York was a little bit less. I think it was around 80 or 90, but still a
Trying to
hefty. I mean,
move those units.
I went into a lot of debt as a college student buying up these laser discs. But I remember buying New York sight unseen. I'd never seen the movie, but I was just so obsessed with Marty. I was like, all right, here's a Marty movie I've never seen, a De Niro movie I've never seen. And I really kind of fell in love with it immediately. I think partly because, and I talked about this in the article, I think it's this interesting marriage of two forms of cinema that I love and that I know Scorsese loves, which are this kind of the old Hollywood artifice and glamour of a Vincent Minnelli, Gene Kelly musical, that is the sort of style, that's the sort of style and backdrop. But then this core relationship story you've got at the center is like something out of a Cassavetes movie. It's like something out of Faces or Woman Under the Influence or something like that. And I thought that those two kind of, and that's sort of why people who don't like the movie don't like it, is they don't think that those two things work together, and they think they detract from each other. And for me, the appeal of the movie is the weird collision you get, because I think it's a time when, it's hard to imagine now, because Scorsese is pretty much, he's on the Mount Rushmore of American filmmakers. But, in 1977, he was still kind of trying to figure out who he was and what kind of director he was going to be. And you can feel that tension in New York, New York, where it's like, am I the guy? Am I the personal European and American indie influenced director who does movies like Mean Streets and Taxi Driver? Or am I a Hollywood director? And I mean, who does studio genre films? And I actually think the answer ended up proving that he's both. I mean, I think that I think some of his
Totally.
best, and I think some of his best movies, like Cape Fear, or even one could argue to a certain extent, Goodfellas. I mean, Goodfellas is a very personal, idiosyncratic movie, but it's also a Warner Brothers gangster film. I mean, I
Yeah, it's
think
a
that,
big studio gangster. Yeah,
yeah,
that is a modern with a lot more profanity and violence that you see. But yeah, it's just like the Warner movies from the 30s and 40s.
exactly. It's Public Enemy or Little Caesar or one of those movies. And I think that he is generally at his best in these kind of, when he's doing a kind of well-resourced studio movie that's in a recognizable genre that he's pouring his personal preoccupations into. And I feel like New York was kind of his first stab at that. And he didn't feel it was entirely successful, and it certainly wasn't commercially successful. But I think that I think it's really interesting for all those reasons.
Well, I think for sure, like what you said about not listening to directors because they don't just bring the fine, like what they objectively, if that's even an actual thing, think about the final product. It's what was the space when they were in the process of making it, and then what was their experience of the critical and public and economic response to the movie. And he had just come off Taxi Driver, which was cataclysmic for him. Like it was,
Right.
you had Roger Ebert saying this, or wait, was that Mean Street? No, it was Taxi Driver. Roger Ebert going like, this is the American Fellini and all this stuff. And then in contrast, the response to New York, New York, I can't imagine that was great for him.
Yeah, no, completely. I mean, and it is, but that whole thing about like what you were saying about how directors, and it goes for actors too. I mean, I remember I've actually argued with actors and directors about their own movies where I'm the one arguing in favor and they're the ones arguing against. I mean, I
I
had,
love those
yeah,
interviews. I haven't let me have some for the show notes for yours. I love it when you have a good interviewer who's a passionate fan of the movie and the director's going, "Oh, well, I don't know about that." Like, no, it's
yeah,
actually
I
really
mean,
good.
yeah, and I've had even, I mean, being a Sam Fuller fan, I don't know if you're also a Bud Bedicker fan,
Oh,
but
very much.
I was very lucky when I came out here to go to film school. I became friends with Bud Bedicker. He was kind of a mentor of mine,
My
and
goodness.
he and I were having an argument. Well, I was talking about how much I loved one of his movies one time, and he was kind of like, it's not very good." But I couldn't. And finally, he admitted to me, he's like, "You know what? It's probably just because Karen Steele's in it, and I was having an affair with Karen Steele, and it went horribly wrong." And it's like, so he was dismissing the entire movie.
There you go.
But yeah, you can never trust, you can't trust directors. You certainly can't trust writers. I mean, Robert Towne still complains about Polanski ruining the end of Chinatown. So it's like, if the guy who wrote Chinatown isn't happy with it, you can't trust what these guys say.
No, not at all. So yeah, for me, like a week ago was the first time I saw it, and it really was because I've got, I mean, his portion of New York Stories I haven't seen, and
Oh wow, that's a
I will see it.
masterpiece.
I will see it at some point. I definitely should have by now, but I'm on principle annoyed, and this is not a problem with Imprint, their releases, but the Criterion release of Age of Innocence is so bare bones. I'm like, I'll buy it one day. Maybe in the 4K they'll put an extra couple of special features on it. It just feels like I feel like there's like a trailer or something. There's no
I'm
special
gonna
like.
respectfully disagree. The Criterion Age of Innocence is a great Blu-ray. There's actually
Is
quite a
it
few
okay?
extras. Yeah, there's. I'll tell you, the quality of extras on it is strong. It's you get you,
Okay, well I
but
will.
there, no, there's good stuff on that.
December's coming up. That's the only really big outstanding one. And I saw Color of Money on TV forever ago. And that like I don't really have Color of Money in my head at all, but Age of Innocence and New York, New York were the two ones that I kind of had outstanding.
So you haven't seen the movie Age of Innocence at all, or
Nope.
you just don't have the Criterion?
No.
Oh wow.
No, I
Oh
don't I
yeah. No,
haven't
Age of
seen it.
Innocence is one of his best too.
Okay. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
he doesn't really
It's
I mean, I
yeah.
don't
I mean, he doesn't have any
love
bad ones.
I don't love
Huh?
The Aviator. I think it's impressive, but yeah, I would not say that Scorsese, especially post Taxi Driver, has any like major stinkers.
No, and his New York Stories is you should really check out. I mean, that one it's like his segment is maybe 40 or 45 minutes. It is a full meal. I mean, it
It's the
feels like
first one,
his
right?
yeah, and it feels
Yeah.
as substantive as a anybody else's 2-hour movie. He packs it into 45 minutes. It's great and a great all-time great Nick Nolte performance too.
No, I was tooling around here as I was preparing for this that I was gonna maybe make the joke in the show notes like this is like the prequel to New York Stories and Gangs of New York, like the little Scorsese trilogy. So I will probably tonight or tomorrow, check out the New York Stories segment.
Yeah, no, it's definitely well worth checking out for sure. New York Stories as a
But
whole is
yeah,
interesting. I mean, the Coppola one's not very good, but the Woody Allen and Marty ones are both great.
Um, just I was exactly what you said about the two different tones of this movie. Like, if you are a movie lover and you're a Scorsese fan, and if you're a De Niro fan, like this really was a treat. The
Yeah.
artifice and the intimate drama, like the two characters, Liza Minnelli and Robert De Niro, they are so interesting to me. And I've only had a little bit of time to mull it over, but like they both seem like kind of well written characters, but also kind of archetypes. And that kind of really works for the story because it is kind of like, I don't know if pastiche is quite the right word, but it's a general story about ambition and talent and personalities. You're kind of rooting for both of these people, even though De Niro's kind of a terrible guy in some ways, some of that circumstances, but like that tortured artist, like he's actually talented, just like Raging Bull. Raging Bull is on most days, that's usually the first one I think of. Like maybe not favorite, but maybe I think that might be Scorsese's best film in a way. And all of what he and De Niro were both going through at that time. And it's so interesting that these movies were back to back. Just that context of it. These two, De Niro being very talented but can't get out of his way, that just came out a couple years from each other, I think would be a really, I mean, it would not be a very uplifting double feature, but just, I think that would be a wonderful double bill.
Yeah. Well, and like you say, it's interesting. It is interesting this whole cycle of De Niro as like socially awkward or socially inept characters that runs basically from Mean Streets through King of Comedy. I mean, these movies about guys who either talk too much or can't, and try too hard, or they can't communicate at all, or it's but they're also different. I mean, that's what's interesting is they're kind of thematic threads, but every one of those characters, it's almost like you're not even looking at the same guy. I mean, if you think about Jake LaMotta versus Travis Bickle versus Doyle versus Rupert Pupkin, I mean, they're such different performances. And and you're right. Like as a fan of De Niro's and a fan of Marty's, like you look at even just the opening 20 minutes or so of New York, New York is just this like tour de force of like this whole like seduction or pickup scene between De Niro and Liza Minnelli that is so weird. I mean, it's like a sort of pickup scene, but he's almost like a stalker or something. And
It's
it's very
very
strange.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But as you watch the movie as a whole, he is not a well adjusted good person, we can call him, but he's trying in ways, and he also clearly doesn't have the tools, and not blah 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 making excuses or whatever, but it's also a fictional story. Like at that time men didn't really have that. Like I know, and that's for me, I talked about this on the Raging Bull episode when we had this on previously. Like Raging Bull feels like such a real document. I grew up
my grandparents immigrated. And my father was first generation, and looking at those old photo books of their times in New York, especially the early scene with like the clubs and the pools and the rec centers and all that in Raging Bull, like it kind of feels documentary-ish to me. I know those people. They Yeah, they have a temper. Like that's the stereotypes, like, oh, Italians have the tempers, they yell and smash stuff and break stuff or whatever. But like their immigrant experience, like in a post 9/11 world, Italians aren't really seen as minorities that get a bad rap. But at that time, it was not great, and they didn't have a lot of resources. Like they were like underprivileged and didn't have great resources. Not that they were unique in that, but then you see this guy trying to make something of himself with real talent. He's drawn to this woman. He's also drawn to several women, and
Mhm.
that's kind of the scumbagginess a little, where he tries the exact same line on multiple people, but for whatever reason locks on Eliza Minnelli, and then through happenstance kind of comes back to her at the end with his buddy.
Mhm. Yeah. No, it's a really incredible incredible sequence, and there's so many scenes in the movie that like it's weird because like you say, like Raging Bull, the whole movie feels very much like documentary reality. And what's interesting about New York is that it's all again very artificial. Like when you see a scene when they're standing in a forest, it's clearly like a forest that's like a painted backdrop on a soundstage or something. But the
It's fake,
dialogue
but
in
it
it,
is also beautiful. Like
yeah,
the actual artistry, it is a old Hollywood movie with like grappling with the modern realities.
yeah, well, the production designer was Boris Levin, who had done like Giant and West Side Story and Sound of Music and stuff. So he came from that whole world, and yeah, it's beautiful. But then you've got De Niro yelling at Liza Minnelli about why'd she have a baby and he didn't want her to, and it screwed up their lives and all this, and it's so harsh. And yeah, it's just it's really it's incredible.
Yeah, basically forcing her to marry him. I've seen a number of people who maybe aren't critics, maybe one or two were, but I've seen a lot of people just reaction looking at Letterbox and things like that, where people are like, "Oh, I don't buy the romance," and obviously this is a an unhealthy relationship. But you
Right.
could see how two very passionate, very talented people in a time where relationships weren't what they are now. Like
Yeah.
the tools that people had for self understanding and self expression, they didn't have now. So yeah, the relationship doesn't, like, we wouldn't call that a healthy modern relationship, but it rang true enough to me. I wasn't like, why is Liza Minnelli possibly drawn to this guy at all? It's like, yeah, I think we get it.
I think that's a really good point. I mean, I think that is something that maybe people don't necessarily understand is like, the characters that De Niro and Liza Minnelli are playing. I mean, they're basically from my grandparents' generation. And I know that my grandparents, like my grandfather did not, you know, he did not express himself, his emotions like with my grandmother in like a straightforward, healthy way. I mean, it's like these, and my grandfather was a musician, so he was a jazz musician. So like, that character is very recognizable to me. But I don't think like in terms of why would Liza Minnelli be with this guy. I don't think women then had the same expectations of men that women today do. I mean, like it wouldn't have even occurred to them that a guy was supposed to be warmer and more communicative and more considerate than that De Niro character is. I mean, he is a bad guy, and to her in a lot of ways. But I don't think it's implausible necessarily that she would be with. I don't think it's any more implausible that she would be with him than that Sybil Shepherd would go on a date with Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely more of a stretch, I would say. But yeah, no, as their relationship develops, like circling both of their immense talent, but his, because of his social inability, it's kind of clear from the get go that he almost certainly won't find success, not because of his lack of talent, but exactly because of those lack of emotional and relational intelligence.
Yeah. Well, and that's also an interesting thing about the movie too, is I feel like the De Niro and Minnelli characters in that movie, again, if you want to not to try to psychoanalyze the director, but I do think that they're kind of like two sides of the things that he was grappling with at the time. Is like on the one hand, like in the movie, the De Niro character kind of looks down on the Liza Minnelli character because she's too mainstream and she's too, go along to get along. But she also manages to have a career, and ultimately, she has a bigger hit probably with his song than he does, with the New York song. And he has this alleged integrity, but is just incapable of being diplomatic with people. And there's this sort of, and so it's sort of like, well, which way is better? And I think like Marty was at the time, I don't think Marty was like trying to be an asshole like the De Niro character, but I think he was struggling with that idea of like, uh how much do you try to play along with the system, and how, and where's the line where you do that too much and you're no longer yourself? But if you're not getting to do what you want to do anyway, is that working against you? It's just all that kind of stuff. I feel like he was probably wrestling with in some way.
Well, yeah, entirely. I thought it was nicely kind of um crystallized in the scene in the bus where De Niro was sleeping and the manager, she's like, "Wasn't that a great night?" He's like, "Yeah, but I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to do this with him. Like, he's so talented, blows the lid off the place. He's great. He's terrible to work with. Venues don't want to work with us. Bands don't want to work with us. He's terrible. Like, he's great, but he's
Yeah.
terrible."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Yeah, I know." Like, she's not under any illusions. But like you
Hmm.
said, it's sadly, and we have made much progress in people going, "Hey, I don't have to settle for something that's degrading just because
Hmm.
there's some sort of social security net involved there."
Hmm. Yeah. And the other thing, Scorsese always described the movie as being a movie about the impossibility of two creative people being in love, or, or having a successful relationship, which, I don't think is necessarily true. I think, obviously, I think creative people can
No,
have a successful relationship. But again, that was certainly reflecting the truth of where he was at the time and where he was for a long time. I mean, the guy went through, he's been married like 8 times or something like that. So he didn't find one that stuck until the 90s.
I do want to see at some like as I spend a little bit more time with this movie, I would like to line it up to Marty's relational life because yeah, he really went through that the personal relationship ups and
Including
downs.
with Liza Minnelli. I mean, I don't think he married Liza Minnelli, but he was right. He didn't marry her, but he was with
I
her
don't
for a
believe he
while.
married her.
Yeah, I don't think he married her. He married Isabella Rossellini, but briefly. But it's
What
hard.
an interesting
It's,
life she has had.
yeah.
She's married 2 of the Mount Rushmore, guys.
Wait, who else was Isabella Rossellini married to?
David Lynch.
They weren't married.
Or
They
was
were
she not
married.
married? They were partnered. No, they were
They were
partnered for
together.
several years.
Yeah, they
They
were
lived
together
together. They
for
didn't
sure.
get married.
They were for sure. But still, yeah, yeah. Well, and then her dad is Roberto Rossellini. So yeah, she got. I
Interesting life.
don't spend a lot of time around
She's
great
still around. Have
directors.
you ever, interviewed
Mhm.
her?
I haven't actually. I
She
have
seems
not.
to be doing more stuff. I love that some of our elder greats are getting back into it and cranking out a lot of stuff. I hope
Oh, for
Marty's able
sure.
to make movies as long as he did, and I hope he wins the Emmy.
Well, he didn't win the Emmy because they gave out that Emmy last Saturday and Bryan Cranston got it. But
Oh, he didn't get it? I did not.
yeah,
I didn't realize that had happened.
yeah, because they do with the Emmys. There's like the quote unquote minor categories they give out like a week ahead of time, and
I see.
so the best guest one went out, and Bryan Cranston, which makes sense. I mean, Cranston's part on that show was incredible and hilarious, and more of, I guess, a real quote performance. But it still would
What
have
a
been fun if
great
Marty would
show.
have won. Yeah, fantastic, absolutely
Um,
incredible
I
show.
I was gonna say, as far as like De Niro's relatability to other people, one of the points in the movie that really stuck out on first viewing was the scene, like after he caused the scene in that club, which incredible art direction with all the red neon. And then
Yeah,
also when he
those
was
light
getting
bulbs.
yanked out of the club when he was kicking all the
Yeah,
light bulbs down the hallway,
yeah, that's a
that was
great
incredible.
image.
I was like, I got
Yeah,
to see this in a theater, but I don't know if maybe with Imprint there's a file that somebody could show. This would be amazing in a theater.
it would.
Um,
I've seen it once projected, and it's great.
but anyway,
Yeah,
so he goes to another section. He has a big blow up at the table because his wife is progressing farther than he is, I guess. And then he goes to another part of the restaurant where somebody else from the band comes over and is just trying to be pleasant with him. And I think it's the only point in the movie where it's so awkward. It is almost like the Travis Bickle awkwardness comes out where he's like,
mhm.
"Hey, can I actually be honest with you? I think I'm kind of jealous of you." And it's like, this is not the guy we've seen this whole movie, and it's not really. He has a very sweet moment with his son, which got me emotional a little bit, but that moment where he admits to the other musician that he's jealous, and it's not that. I don't think what he meant, and I mean, I think this is up for grabs, kind of goes with like the artistry of the movie, but I don't think he's just jealous of that guy's musical talent. I think maybe it's also if he's jealous of like you're talented and like you're able to do this. You're able to
Right.
do this whole work work well with others thing.
Yeah. No, definitely.
But all of the De Niro performances, I don't know if he actually did the saxophone performances. All of De Niro's performances were great, and then all of Liza Minnelli's singing, like I was just watching that in my living room and I was blown away.
Yeah. No, I mean, I know, I don't know for sure if all the performances are him, but I know he, I know he trained for months and months on the saxophone. That was his thing in those days. I mean, he was known for like, if every movie, I mean, there's the famous story about Taxi Driver that he actually got a license to drive a New York
Yeah,
cab for a
he
few
knew
months
all the routes, yeah.
before he did it. And there was like a point where he actually picked up an actor in his cab, and the actor looked at the license and it said Robert De Niro, and he was like, "Oh my God, Robert De Niro!" He's like, "You just won the Oscars. The business really that hard?"
Yeah. But no, the musical numbers were astounding.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and it's crazy that happy endings musical number that ends the movie, or that not ends it, but that is sort of the climax of the movie. In the initial theatrical release, that was cut out because they kind of panicked. Like they knew the movie was not going to be a commercial success, and so they were trying to get it down to 2 hours, figuring that would somehow help. And I think they actually made it less commercial by cutting that out, because that ending gives it this kind of very interesting. It gives you this really interesting feeling as you walk out of the movie, where it's kind of like you kind of get a happy ending, but it's not really real. So it gives it this bittersweet tone or whatever. But then if you watch the European cut on that imprint Blu-ray, you see what it's like without that number. And it's just kind of, it's kind of depressing without the sort of bittersweet quality. So it's like, it's very, it's weird that they cut it out, but that sequence is great because that's kind of like the movie's ultimate flowering of the tribute to old Hollywood and him doing something the way that Vincent Minnelli or Stanley Donen or whoever would have done it.
Well, yeah, and it's such a good segue into maybe even slightly more than Raging Bull. We could say that maybe De Niro has had some growth by the end of this over the years because she has the baby, and then at the end he's, I don't know, 8 to 10 years old, something like that. So there's been some time passed in just the way he carries himself. He's done some growth. Like hopefully
Hmm.
you don't not grow in a decade,
Hmm.
but he comes back and just I think that happy endings where it kind of dangles it and it's like, yeah, maybe happy endings aren't really for us, but it's also like, well, isn't it happy if
Hmm.
we have growth and can remember the good in its actual place, like not idolize a bad thing. Their scenes, their scene and scenes together, like where he catches her eye while she's performing, and then their moment in the dressing room and the phone call and the final decision, like that's all very tender. It doesn't have any of the tension and the terror of the first 2 hours of the movie.
Hmm. Well, it's interesting because I never really thought about this until you just said it, but that's an interesting thing about New York is that it's one of it's really the only De Niro Scorsese collaboration of that first wave where his character does grow a little bit. I mean, that's like the fascinating thing is like they always tell you in screenwriting classes and stuff that screenplays are about characters growing and the arc of the character. And Marty makes movies about people who do not grow and do not gain self-awareness. Like De Niro's character in Mean Streets never grows. His character in Taxi
True.
Driver doesn't grow. His character in Raging
Raging
Bull,
Bull
maybe
is
a little bit,
minuscule. That
maybe
scene,
incrementally.
I like because I have so much affection for everybody involved. Like the scene with his brother at the end, like I'll
Yeah.
hold on to that kernel, but
That
this is it.
there's a little kernel in Raging Bull. King of Comedy, the guy doesn't grow,
Woof.
and then it's like you get to, and in general, a lot of Marty's protagonists. I mean, it's like Ray Liotta in Goodfellas. That guy learns nothing. I mean, he at the end of the movie, he's only he's only upset because he got caught and it ended, but like he doesn't have any moral remorse or conscience or anything like that,
Yeah,
you
no,
know.
Wolf, Irishman, Killers, none of those either. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's really, so it's kind of interesting when you think about it that he's made all these great movies that don't have the kind of, I don't want to say, I don't want to use the word crutch. That's not the right word, but he doesn't have, he's kind of like on a high wire. He's working without a net because he doesn't have the support system of the traditional Hollywood structure of like a character who grows. Like he makes so many movies that don't have that. And it's, I didn't think about that, but that is New York. New York is a little bit of an outlier in that way. Although, as you say, it's slight growth. It's like even when he has characters grow, like in New York or Raging Bull, it's a kernel kind of.
Well, yeah, in 10 years, he's able to
Oh, I
be
will say there's
civil.
the, I will say I mean, the big exception obviously is those when he does the explicit films of faith. I mean, like those are movies where there is like obviously spiritual away, like they're almost kind of, you know, they're interesting doppelgangers, the faith movies with like the gangster movies or something. Like, and it's funny, and it's
Absolutely.
funny, and it's funny how when he makes movies, like often his movies are kind of reactions against the ones he just did. Like I knew a week before I saw Casino, I knew Casino was going to be good because it was announced that his next movie was going to be about the Dalai Lama. And I thought, if Marty's feeling like he needs to cleanse himself that badly, Casino is going to be great. And it was. Um, but it was like after making this 3-hour movie about, you know, these just again, like morally bankrupt people, it's like he had to go and make a Dalai Lama movie in response.
No, that's yeah. That's I didn't think about it as the outlier, but when you say it, it absolutely is. He has a really nice scene with her in the dressing room,
Yeah.
and then, man, it really tore my heart out. Like the scene with his son, because it's like,
Mhm.
what could have
Great
been?
scene. Right. Yeah. No, and there is, and it is a beautiful. I mean, I don't want to get into, you know, too many. I don't know if we're getting into too many spoilers here, but it is like a real. The end of the movie, you
Oh,
do
full
have such.
spoilers. We're good.
You do have mixed feel. You do have such mixed feelings. There is a part of you that like wants them to, um, you know, it wants them to meet at the end for Chinese
Yeah,
food or whatever it is they
try
talked about
again. Why
doing,
not?
you know. But then there's also a party that's like, it's, you know, it's maybe just it's the moment has passed. Like it's even if they have grown a little bit, it's like they may have grown in different directions. They may have, it just might not be something that is ever going to really work. And I never even, you know, it's funny. I didn't think about it until I revisited it, but like I think that movie is so much part of my DNA. Like uh, you know, I've made a couple of independent films, and I directed a movie that I now realize I completely ripped the ending of New York off for without being conscious of it. I think just because it was so much a part of my DNA that it just like I completely stole it. So
It's the power of laser discs.
it is a lazy, yeah. Well, I think there is something about the things you watch sometimes, you know, I don't know. There's definitely something about the things you watch when you're young that they can burrow into you in a way that stuff doesn't later, even if you love it. I mean, I still get excited about movies. You know, I still see stuff that I just I get really ecstatic over, but there's something about the stuff you see when you're in your like your mind and heart are like the most open to discovery. And again, that's where what like,
Totally,
you
totally.
know, Marty was that, and for me in the early '90s for sure.
I mean, I still get irritated when people it's not Casino or Goodfellas, but I get annoyed when people clown on The Departed as if it's like a lesser
Oh
Scorsese just
no, that's a
because
fantastic movie.
he should have won earlier and they gave him the like, it's a very strong movie. It's an incredible movie.
No, it's a great movie. There's no question. I mean,
And for
it's
me, that was one I saw, I think it was high school or college, but that was, I think, the first movie I saw in the theater after my father, who Italian American, big cinephile, passed away. And that was, I saw that one several times in the theater.
mhm.
That was like when I started going by myself a lot. And I went with friends, I went by myself. But yeah, The Departed was always a very special one for me
It's another
in
great
that vein.
example of, yeah, it's another great example of talking about how some of his best movies are these ones that are like the intersection
Totally.
between a popular entertainment and his own sort of philosophical preoccupations.
Yeah. Like, okay, the rat was dumb at the end, but like, there's a lot of very good stuff in that movie. Incredible performances. Thelma. some of her best work.
Yeah, no,
But that's
absolutely.
also like she's been the secret sauce for a long time.
Yeah. And it's got like the highest. I mean, it's you watch that movie and you realize how few American studio movies in the last 30, 40 years like kill off their movie stars, because that one has a body count that is insane. Like
It's huge.
the only big studio movie I can think of that has a body count like that in terms of killing off its main stars is Babylon. It's like it just they drop like flies in those movies, and it's
Totally.
it's really shocking because you're just not used to seeing, you're not used to a movie where Matt Damon and DiCaprio and all those guys are gonna and Martin Sheen where they're all gonna buy it. It's very surprising.
I've got a question for you as a critic and somebody
Yeah,
who's a big
I'm gonna.
Scors
I don't want to. Let me just interrupt you before we go any further. Which is, I don't consider myself a critic. I do want to say this. Like, sometimes people call me a critic, and I am not a critic.
Sure.
I am a because I first of all, I don't write about anything I don't like. I only write about stuff so I sort of describe myself
That's
more
the
as
lane that I love to be in.
I describe myself more as an enthusiast,
Okay.
or if I want to sound more professional, I call myself a film historian. But I don't really think of myself as a critic, because I think a critic is somebody who you're sort of you're sort of reviewing movies, each movie based on its merits, and some of them you're trashing and some of them you're liking, and everything. And I never, I mean, I have on occasion written about stuff I didn't like, but usually only because I got backed into it somehow. Like I've had a couple situations where I committed to writing about something before I saw it, thinking I was going to like it, and then saw it and was like,
Got
oh
it.
God.
I
But
got to write
generally,
about this thing that I hate.
I generally now, it's my rule. Like if you hear me interview a director on like the IndieWire podcast, or you read me write an interview or something, you can assume I liked the movie, because I pretty much don't do it if I didn't. But anyway, sorry to interrupt you,
No,
but
that's a good distinction, because actually I was looking at I'm based out of Kansas City, looking at getting entered into the Kansas City Critics Circle, and part of their rules is like 70+% of the stuff you cover has to be that year, so you don't just get to
oh,
pick and choose what you cover. So yeah, no, I like the lane of enthusiasts, and I have a few other friends in the space who call themselves film historians. I love that too. Somebody in your position with the access and the work that you've done, Martic Martin is not somebody who whose work that I'm super aware of as a Scorsese collaborator. I looked up the writers of this, and I also saw it. I thought it was very curious. He's got writing credits on The Last Waltz and Italian American as well. Do you know? Can you shed any brief
yeah.
light on
Well,
their collaboration?
yeah. I mean, they were pretty tight collaborators, and he also co-wrote Raging Bull. Although the Raging Bull script that ultimately got made was
That was much more
mostly,
Schrader, yeah.
well, and really more Marty and De Niro. I mean, that script, if you go, like, if you read the drafts of that script, like, if you're ever in LA, you can go to the Academy Library, and they've got like different drafts of the screenplay. And if you read those drafts, like, I mean, certainly Schrader did a lot of it, but a lot of the work on Raging Bull was kind of done by De Niro and Scorsese. They took Schrader and Marty Martin's stuff
Oh yeah, they
and
did
went to
fight about about
they
some of those scenes. Yeah.
yeah, they went to like an island. They went to Marlon Brando's island in like Tahiti or somewhere, and spent a couple of weeks rewriting the script. And they actually wrote a lot of it too. But yeah, I mean, most of what Marty Martin did was kind of discarded for Raging Bull. But he wrote Martin and Marty they went to NYU together, and they co-wrote "Who's That Knocking at My Door?" Scorsese's first feature. They co-wrote Mean Streets, and then Last Waltz and Italian American. Basically, Martin wrote the kind of treatments for those. Like they kind of had like outlines for where he
Okay,
wanted to go with
interesting.
those. So like in order to get in order to make Italian American, it was like I think it was financed by, I don't know if it was public television or what, but whoever financed Italian American, like Marty had to turn in like I think like a page long proposal or
Oh, like a
something, and
pitch. I
and
see. That
and
makes
Martin
sense.
wrote that,
He
and I think
helped
he
him.
wrote something similar for Last Waltz. Like those movies didn't have scripts per se, obviously, because but that's sort of what Martin did on those, and New York, New York, uh, like Martin is he's a credited co-writer. Like it started with a script by this guy Earl MacRouch, and then Marty brought Marty Martin in to rewrite it. Jay Cox, a lot of these Marty movies, Jay Cox is an uncredited writer on. Some of them he's
Especially the
credited on.
70s, yeah.
Yeah, he's credited later on Age of Innocence and a couple of the others. Maybe I can't remember what the other ones are. Maybe Silence. I don't. But anyway, Gangs of New York for sure. Um, but in the 70s, Jay Cox, who was a film critic at Time, I think, and a really good friend of Marty's, he would often kind of come in and script doctor these, and he worked a lot on the New York script. I mean, the New York script was in a state of constant flux when they were making it because of this idea where Marty wanted to try to like have a kind of improvisational nature to the relate to try to get at some kind of truth with the main relationship. And in fact, it's why the movie went so far. It went over budget because they would like build sets and then the improvisations would take the story in a different direction. And like the sets they had built didn't work anymore and they had to build new sets and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, I mean, Marty Martin's a pretty important figure. I don't know if after Raging Bull, I think they may, and there may have even been a little bit of a falling out after Raging Bull because so much his script kind of got scrapped. But yeah, he was when I later went to USC film school. He was actually a screenwriting teacher there, although I never took a class with him.
Interesting. Yeah, no, he's a name I'm sure I've heard in the documentaries and special features, but all of the non-narrative stuff that they worked on too, I was like, oh, they must have been close collaborators.
There's some good stuff on Marty Martin on the Criterion Mean Streets disc. There's like a sort
Okay.
of little documentary on him on there that's and some interviews with him and stuff that are very good.
I love that. I mean, Scorsese for a long time has been recognized as one of the greats, but like you said, it's such a great time for both like seeing good stuff in theaters if you have a good rep cinema, but also if you're a home video person, the Blu-rays that are coming out now, Criterion, Radiance,
Yeah.
Imprint, Second Sight, all these things are just
It
amazing.
is it is unbelievable stuff that when I mean the embarrassment of riches that we have now and that film students have now. I mean when I was a film student, I remember I remember driving for like hours to get to rent like a blurry VHS copy of like Visconti's The Leopard, which is like obviously now it's like you flip on the Criterion channel and you
Get the
can
4K,
stream
yeah.
this gorgeous 4K restoration. But I mean, yeah, the stuff that people like Radiance are putting out, I mean, these movies that even it's what's great about this is that even if you're a learned cinephile like you or I probably consider ourselves to be, it's exciting when you find out how much is out there that you still never knew about. I mean,
I talk to
it's
my movie friends all the time. I'm such a big evangelist for Radiance in particular. You mentioned it, like Imprint and Criterion and Arrow and all those guys. I love their packages. I love their special features. I love the artists they work with. Criterion could do better on the special features, but like I love the packages of what all those people produce. But Radiance, man, they're I don't know, they've got like 200 or so, or maybe creeping up on 200 releases. There's only been a few of, and I don't have everything, but I look at them every month, seeing what they put out. I feel like there's only been like 3 of the movies that they put out that I was aware of previously.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
everything I've watched, and I haven't watched them all. I would love to. If anybody in LA, any crazy rich people that just want to support Radiance and give me a lifetime supply of those, I'll take them. But everything I've watched of Radiance that I've gone in essentially blind, like I knew, like Messiah of Evil's one I'd heard about, but I'd never
Yeah.
seen it or had access to it. But like everything I've gone in essentially blind, I've been like, wow. Even if I'm not like, oh, that's my cup of tea, my favorite thing, I'm like, this is really good. Some of their world noir sets. I'm a big noir guy. I've
Mhm.
heard of some of those filmmakers, but I was not aware of any of the films that they put out.
Yeah, no.
And everything I've
Mhm.
seen so far has been fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting when you just realize. I mean, it's also daunting and intimidating when you realize that you will. It doesn't matter. You will never have enough time. I mean, you will never have enough hours in your life to even scratch the surface of what's out there. But it's yeah. I mean, it is just what a time to be alive if you are a movie fan. I mean, it's
It's
just
true.
absolutely incredible.
Speaking Radiance, if you're listening, if you heard your name mentioned on the SEO, put out those last couple Sam Fuller movies that we don't have. That'd be great. I'm trying to get them to put out so like Thieves at Night, whatever that French one was. I think that would be perfect for a world noir set. I've only
Yeah,
I mean talk about
I'm not
driving
even.
hours and hours. That's one that I complain because there's only a crappy 480p rip on the internet. I'd love to see that actually restored, but no,
Mhm.
it's a wonderful time we live in.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, there's still things that aren't available that you can complain about, but again, compared to like that what I had when I was in film school. I mean, when it's funny, like just because I was thinking, like, in I remember in when I was in film school, like spending like a fortune on an out of print VHS copy of Menahem Golan's The Apple. And I mean, I they had it in my grocery store for like $10, like they had like a Blu-ray of it in my in like Ralph's in a thing in the middle of the frozen food section. So it's amazing.
Well, any final thoughts on New York, New York? What would be your pitch to somebody who has never heard about it or heard it that it was the lesser Scorsese? Like, what's your elevator pitch?
I mean, I would simply say it is the movie he made in between Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. So, if nothing else, it is the connective tissue between two of the greatest movies ever made. So, I would, if you are a fan of his, you want to have, no matter what, you want to see what he was doing in that era because it was, but I also think I would say just it does have. Well, here's one other thing I'll say that we didn't say is I think it's one of those movies that puts the lie to this idea that I've heard not from anyone of intelligence, but that I have heard this idea that he's sort of characterized as like a male oriented director who's not interested in women or women's issues, and that's total nonsense. I mean, early on, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, which is one of the great movies, of the early '70s. But then New York, New York. I mean, again, like it's something that he is not necessarily thought of as being great at, but he is, which is it's kind of a great rom com. I mean, it's a dark rom com, but it's kind of, but like the stuff between De Niro, the banter between Liza Minnelli and Robert De Niro. I mean, it's like something out of a '40s rom com. And in
They've
fact,
got
that's a
chemistry.
that's another, yeah, and that's another thing I think he is in some ways underrated is like that Marty is, aside from everything else, he's like one of the great comedy directors of all time. Like his movies mostly are very very funny, and you think of like Mean Streets and the kind of what's a mook, who's a mook, or like De Niro and some of the banter between De Niro and Harvey Keitel in the back room, and it's almost like an Abbott and Costello routine or something. And New York is a very, very, it's De Niro's very funny in it, and he's also very scary. I mean, it's an all time great performance, as you said. Minnelli, you've got Minnelli, in the same era that she was doing Cabaret with songs by the guys who wrote the songs for Cabaret. I mean, it's insane that the song New York wasn't nominated for an Oscar, like for best
That's
song.
ridiculous.
Like I don't remember what one. It was something like the love theme from Flipper, or I don't know what, but like something not worthy beat it out. I know that, and it's just totally crazy But and it didn't. The song didn't really take off for a couple of years until Sinatra recorded it, and then of course it became huge. But yeah, I just think if you're a Marty fan, and I don't know who isn't, who loves movies, I it's just you may not agree with me that it's top tier, but you got to see it for yourself. You've got to at least check it out. And as we've discussed on here, I don't think he's never made a movie that doesn't give you something, doesn't make it worth your while to have watched it. I mean, on his worst day, I don't know what his worst day would be. I mean, I agree with you. I'm not like as passionate about The Aviator, maybe, but still tons of fantastic stuff in that movie. So
I really like Shutter Island. A lot of people put that
Shutter
one
Island's
down
great.
low. I like it a
Yeah.
lot.
That's a very disturbing movie.
Yeah, and I always love it because I'm a big, like we've talked, a big Fuller fan, and Val Lewton. He always talked about that as
That
like
is
his
a very
swing,
Sam Fuller Bell Luton.
his swing at a Fuller Luton kind of picture, and
100%.
it's
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, okay, so shout outs, Jimmy, what have you been watching, reading, listening to lately that you're excited about, that you want to tell people to take a look at?
Well, you're catching me on a good day because Tuesday I had one of the great days at the movies that I've ever had in my life. And I saw I saw advanced screenings of two movies that are coming out in the next few weeks that I thought were both like all time great. The first one was The Smashing Machine, the new Benny Safdie movie with Dwayne
Okay.
Johnson and Emily Blunt. which is based on a true story about this Ultimate Fighting Championship guy, Mark Kerr. This is a world I could not, in my life, I could not care less about. Like, I'm not a sports guy in general. I really don't get UFC. I don't understand the appeal. I love violent movies, but I don't understand the appeal of actually watching two people beat the crap out of each other. It's totally foreign to me. But much like Raging Bull, which is also about a world I don't give a crap about, boxing, this movie, it really proves the Roger Ebert thesis that a movie is not only about what it's about how it's about what it's about. And so this movie made me care about this world that I don't care about, made me love this guy who's in a world that I don't care about. But what's really incredible about it is these performances by Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt. I mean, and it's interesting to think about it in the context of New York, because I referenced Cassavetes, and I feel like Smashing Machine, the scenes between Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt in this movie are the closest I've seen anybody get to Cassavetes in a long time. Like they are so
Wow.
emotionally, they are so
Wow.
emotionally raw and uncomfortable. I mean, there were scenes in the movie where I kind of had to look away from the screen because I felt like I shouldn't be should not be watching this. I should not be watching what these two people are going through. It was like so painful and emotionally raw. And I think anybody who thinks of The Rock as just like, the Fast and Furious guy, this is really going to blow your mind, because it is a truly, it's not a stunt performance. Like, it's a truly incredible performance. And
I'm
so
so
that
excited
movie,
to see him act again.
it
Like,
was
he
great. I mean,
acted like he was pigeonholed when he kind of sought all that crap for himself, in my opinion. But
mhm.
regardless of how he framed his own previous creative decisions, I was so
This
excited to
thing,
see him act again.
it is amazing. It is so good. So the Smashing Machine, and so I saw that in the afternoon, and then that night I went to see in VistaVision Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle
Mm,
After Another, which is also great.
cannot wait.
So those two movies, and I feel like, I feel like lately it's just, I've been, because of work, I've been getting to see a lot of these things early. So I also saw the New Yorgos Lanthimos movie Begonia, which I really liked. And in like a normal time, Begonia would probably be like my favorite recent movie, but it's like there's been so much good stuff lately. That was like, yeah, Begonia, it's fine, whatever. But yeah, the Paul Thomas Anderson and Benny Safdie movies are just fantastic, and I would really, really highly, I mean, Smashing Machine especially. I cannot rave enough about this thing. I just was just so blown away by it. It was so powerful. I was so moved by it. And again, you don't stay away from it if you're somebody who thinks you don't care, you don't like fighting or boxing or something like that, because I guarantee you, no one hates this stuff more than me, and I loved this movie.
Well, and that's also kind of fitting here. Who knows what's going to get made when, but word on the street is ostensibly that The Rock and Emily Blunt are going to be in one of Scorsese's next movies, right?
That's what I hear. This made me very excited for that, because now that I know, I mean, not that I ever thought Dwayne Johnson wasn't a good actor, but it's like he had gone for a while without flexing those muscles, so to speak, and this one really showed.
Very nice. That'll be a good line that I'm sure many critics will use.
But this one
Enthusiasts.
really did. Yeah, he really he really brought this. It's like just, it's an all time great performance, and Emily Blunt is just as great. I mean, it's fantastic.
No, I'm so excited to hear that. Well, Jim, thank you for your time. Do you have anything? I'm obviously going to link the recent piece from New York itself, but anything that you've been working on or coming soon that you want to have people go check out or look out for?
I don't think I can talk about the Blu-rays
Okay.
I got coming out. Although I will say, if people are, I'll say, I'll say a couple that are already out, that if people want to check them out, that I would recommend, which is, I actually have done a couple of commentaries with my wife, Kelly Goodner, who's a screenwriter, and her and I did commentaries for the Vinegar Syndrome editions of The Golden Child and Navy SEALs that I'm pretty
Nice.
proud of, that I think are worth checking out. So I'll say that. And, I mean, yeah, article wise, basically, if you link to the New York piece, people can then just kind of click on my name in that article, and it'll bring up everything I've got on IndieWire. I mean, I host with my colleagues there. I host podcast called IndieWire Filmmaker Toolkit, and we've got some good people coming up on that. I've got Rob Reiner coming on to talk about This Is Spinal Tap 2, and I'm sure with the fall movies coming out, we'll be having a lot of good people coming up. So
Do you want to go on the record to say what you thought about that yet?
I enjoyed Spinal Tap 2. I enjoyed it. It's
Okay.
not it's certainly not the first one. It's not as great. It's nowhere near it's nowhere near the all time great comedy that one is, but it's I still thought it was a lot of fun.
That's good. And like, I don't want to build like I'm not excited for it. I don't know if I'll see it in the theater, but I want it to be good. I don't want it to be bad. And it's like get these guys paid. Let them set their grandkids up. I don't know. I don't care. Like if that's the stuff that's getting greenlit, just don't make it
Hmm.
bad.
Yeah, no, it's fun. It's fun.
I was one of the very few. This is off track and I might cut this. Did you ever check out the Hulu? I don't think it was I think it was like a series. I think it was episodic. The Mel Brooks History of the World Part 2. Did you ever check that out?
I dipped into it, but I couldn't really get into it. I didn't watch that much of it.
Not incredible, but it was better than I thought. I might
Mhm.
cut that out. But yeah, I when people go back to the well for some of the all-time stuff, it is not that I'd call History of the World all time, but Mel Brooks is one of the all-time guys.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it depends, they can always, I mean, I will say one of my favorite movies this year so far is Freakier Friday, so
Is it?
I
Well,
thought that was
wow.
absolutely great. So, wouldn't have thought so I wouldn't have thought going back to that well would have yielded anything, but I thought that movie was really fun.
Oh, I was almost like I don't have any shout outs from the like because I just recorded an episode the other day because we sometimes record these out of order. But I will say, talking about going back to the well, this was surprising. If you don't, if audience listening, if you don't already like this, you won't like this. But I just finished Dexter Resurrection, and I gotta
Mhm.
say,
That was fun.
real good.
It was good.
Uh, is by the original showrunner of the first 4 seasons, and it shows
Yeah,
easily the best thing since season 4 with the Trinity Killer. It was engaging throughout the whole thing, stuck
yeah.
the landing. They can do more if they want, but it told a full story, and we got some good Kansas City talent in there too for a little while.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, the cast on that was incredible. But, yeah, that was I agree. Dexter Resurrection was really good.
I forgot. I've already told several people to watch it who were because I mean this is also the fourth time they've done it too. Because they did Dexter, then they did that other one, then they did basically young Dexter, and I was like, okay, guys, we gotta knock this off. And then Resurrections, bringing him back after New Blood, but like it was good,
Mhm. Yeah,
and I
absolutely.
hope that Alien Earth sticks the landing. We'll see.
Yeah, I haven't watched that yet, so I gotta check that out.
All right, Jim. Thank you for your time, man. You're welcome
Thank you.
back. Would love to talk to you off the air about Fuller and maybe work into there somehow if possible. But it was great meeting you, man.
Yeah, great to meet you. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Had a wonderful time talking with Jim and hope to have him back for some future discussions, but really enjoyed finally getting to see this movie. Thank you again, Imprint, not just for the incredible set, but just for getting a chance to have this film in a more accessible way. And hopefully more folks will be joining the conversation. This is a great movie. I understand why it feels different than what we think about first with Scorsese. Like, it's not a gangster movie, but it is very much a Martin Scorsese picture. And I hope that there is a nice new print somewhere that maybe some theaters can get this again. I would love to see this in a theater. If you have thoughts on the movie, if you watched it along with us, or have some thoughts on our conversation that sparked some ideas with you, you can send an email or record a voice note and email that over to us at thesubstancepod@gmail.com. We love hearing from you guys. And if you send us a voicemail or a voice note in under, I don't know, 60 or 90 seconds, we'll try to play that on a future episode. If you love the show, the best way to support it is to listen and to tell your friends. Share it on social media, text, Slack, Discord. If you got some folks where you like to talk about movies with them and you enjoy the show, say, hey, these guys are talking about how good New York is. Let's check it out. That's always appreciated. And if you got a couple bucks, I know times are hard and uncertain. You are not going to get a hard sell from me on becoming a financial partner. But if you have a couple bucks, appreciate what we do, want to be a little part of us continuing forward, you can do that over at Cash App at dollar sign the Substance Pod. Send us a couple bucks if you want, and we appreciate every single one of you who does that. It genuinely means a lot. I have a few of my friends and online people who have been following for a while that I support. And anytime when there are so many great people making so many great things, even if somebody sends us a couple bucks, that's always very encouraging. So thanks for anybody who does that. Next week is we're going to take the week off at the end of the month here. It's just going to be either a blank, or there's a chance, because we still have some feed drops that we might do. I might throw in a feed drop, but I'm also really trying to get things set up for hopefully a fun and potentially totally full October of spooky season. I got some great people lined up. I got a book and several substantive cinemas that, if everything comes together, we're going to have a pretty darn full October. So you can look forward to that in the future. And until then, I've been your host, Philip Marinello, saying thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time on The Substance.